Today, the Larian Studios team just participated in an official AMA for Baldur's Gate 3 on Reddit, confirming the community's questions officially, which was peppered with numerous direct answers about storyline, setting, characters, early access, and more. So here are the top questions from the AMA about Baldur's Gate 3, explained by the team at Larian Studios. The Larian team, which kindly answered questions in the AMA, were Sven Vinker, founder and creative director of Larian Studios, David, the producer, Nick P, lead systems designer, Larian Adam, senior writer, and Jan, who is the writing director. Suri Fian asks, will there be any connection between the story of Baldur's Gate 1, 2, and Throne of Baal and Baldur's Gate 3? To which Sven answers, we don't really want to spoil anything, but we wouldn't call it Baldur's Gate 3 if there wouldn't be a link. Let me just say that we touch upon the story of BG 1 and 2 in meaningful ways. There are returning characters, and what happened in BG 1, 2, and TOB leads to what happens in Baldur's Gate 3. You won't necessarily see that at the start of the adventure, but you will quickly understand once we get further into the game. User Bitters asks, how in-depth will character creation be? Lots of options or sliders? Or is it just a number of defaults to choose between? To which Larian David answers, character creation can be as in-depth as you want it to be. Smiley face. After you select a race and a class, you could be all set and ready to go, but if you want to, you can dive in deeper and change all the abilities, spells, skills, cantrips, and custom visuals. Benny MCL jumps in and says, I think he meant in terms of appearance. Will we have sliders for lots of different features on the face, body, etc.? Being able to make a customized character appearance. David responds, you will be able to select a face type, hairdo, facial hair, skin color. I cannot give numbers or details because it's still a work in progress, but there won't be sliders. OrcFailerX asks, will custom/non-origin characters have voice acting, or is it for origin characters only? Larian Adam answers, yes, custom characters will have voice acting. You'll choose a voice as part of character creation. Inner Consequence 3 asks, is there a date set for early access? Dizfraz jumps in before Larian can answer and says, I'm pretty sure the response is going to be when it's ready. To which Larian David cheekily responds, when it's ready. Kidslayer AI asks, will Baldur's Gate 3 be moddable? If so, is it possible for modders to add in new locations/companions in the main storyline or add in new UI? Larian David says, we're focusing first on developing and finishing the main campaign. Once we have some space, we can talk about that. He then follows up with, will the locations be act-based, e.g. a location can only be accessed in Act 1, not Act 2, and like the original Baldur's Gate, will locations be broken down into sections, or will it be like in Divinity where you are in a huge terrain? In terms of act-based, David says, every good story has a beginning, middle, and end. And also, regarding huge terrain, he says, you're in a huge terrain, but between acts you will travel from one huge region to another. As this is a multi-part question, he then follows with, is Tavern resting possible in this game? E.g. in Baldur's Gate, you have to rent for a room. In my opinion, that adds some immersion to the game. And will there be party banters among companions? If so, will they be in dialogue mode, like the originals, or will they just say out their lines during exploration, like the Dragon Age series? In regards to resting at a tavern, David says, we can't talk about this yet. And about party banter, David responds, we have both types. Of course, they'll comment and react, and they'll also banter while just walking around. We call these voice barks and AD for automated dialogues, but they will also react to what you and your party are doing and not doing in dialogues and when you go to camp. Flubberputty then asks, how will the short rest, long rest system work in-game for hit dice, spell slots, item enchantments, and the like? Or will there be a different system in place for it? Larry Nick answers, to take a long rest, the whole party needs to go to camp and spend the night there. This will restore and reset any features normally tied to a long rest in 5e, and also give the party a moment to reflect on recent events. A lot happens at the camp. More on that later. For the short rest, we consider the peacetime between combat encounters as taking a short rest. Kallio Arvis then asks, will there be companions/followers who are not origin characters or playable? Larry and David response, yes, you will be able to recruit mercenaries. Fixionion asks, will all 5e classes be available at launch? Larry and Nick answers yes, all classes from 5e Player's Hand will be included at launch. In early access, you'll be able to play as Cleric, Fighter, Ranger, Rogue, Warlock, or Wizard. Nicohen then asks, will there be a Dungeon Master mode in Baldur's Gate 3, similar to the one you had for Divinity Original Sin 2? I really enjoyed it, and with the D&D rules, it would have even more potential. To which David responds, when we built GM mode for Original Sin, we were of course thinking of D&D and how long it had been since anyone had made such a mode. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but we're focusing on developing the game first at the moment. Actual Douche, yes that's his name, asks, how will multi-classing work, like 5e or modified? Also, what can you tell us about your Ranger rework? Nick responds, multi-classing rules will follow closest 5e D&D. On level up, characters will be able to continue with their current class or choose a new class, provided they meet the requirements. Multi-classing is not going to be available in early access at launch, we're planning to add it later. As for the Ranger, we will be implementing alternative variants of your favorite enemy and natural explorer features that are not limited to specific monsters and location types. When we were working on these changes, we went to Wizards of the Coast for their approval, and it turned out that we were completely on the same page. Mike Merles shared some of their playtesting material, and we're rolling with that. Duskbearer says, hi! The variety of alignments in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 allowed for many interesting party compositions and conflicts. For example, Edwin becomes openly hostile towards some companions and will straight up start a physical fight, I guess magical, with them, or refuse to be in the same group as them due to his lawful evil alignment. It's been said that there won't be an alignment system in Baldur's Gate 3 as it's no longer relevant to 5e, but will we still get to have openly evil/selfish party members that will actively support evil actions and might leave the group if you play in a more heroic fashion, or will all party members have a neutral good behavior? Larry and Jan, the writer, opens up saying alignment may carry less weight in the 5th edition, but all companions definitely have their own moral compass. Some are fine with evil and underhanded deeds, others are not, and they'll be vocal about their approval or opposition to the decisions that you make. It's absolutely possible to take actions that cross the line for someone and he or she will leave the party, or even decide to attack you. From a player's perspective, there's the freedom to play the game in any which way you want from an alignment perspective. In dialogues, there are plenty of choices to be made, from heroically good to patently evil, and the different shades in between. Added to that, there are unique options to be had from a player race or class point of view that fit within the good, neutral, evil perspective. As you would expect, a drow will get different options compared to a paladin of Tyr, for instance. For sure, the world will react to your actions and the choices you make, since these will in some way define you. For example, Asterion is a vampire spawn, and when you play him, you can try and hide this from the party. But if they find out, because, well, you might try to bite them as they sleep, they will obviously be shocked. And unless you manage to handle the situation with the necessary tact and diplomacy, you might find yourself left behind companionless. Kata Bija Kasana then asks, in Baldur's Gate 2, you go to Diana's Keep. In the basement, there are a bunch of Umber Hulks, and if you go in and put dog meat in a certain place, it lures the Umber Hulks and you lock them in. And then you get a bunch of experience for doing it. Has creatively solving problems by following hints given throughout the game like this been a major focus in the development of Baldur's Gate 3? In Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, it seemed like at points throughout the game it was a focus. It wasn't as common as I would like it to be. I prefer the sneaky problem solving over the hack and slash problem solving. I guess I'm lawfully aligned IRL or something. Also, will there be awesome items like the golden pantaloons that you have to carry throughout the game / multiple games to be able to unlock the full potential of the item? Last one, I swear. Will the map be like BG 1 and 2 where you travel to destinations, or will it be like Divinity where it's semi-open world? Regarding creative solutions, our world is really a simulation, held together by rules and systemics. Creatures and items adhere to these rules. This means that reactively, like the one you describe, is always available to the player. It doesn't have to be scripted. Creatively solving problems is one of the things that we envisioned when writing these systems. If systemics don't allow for it, we use N+1 design when it comes to solving situations. In short, this means that there should always be multiple ways to solve a problem, and that we need to take into account that everything could happen, have already happened, and anything that the player can come up with. What does the player expect to be possible? Golden pantaloons. We are creating unique items by hand. They will have special properties. I shouldn't go into details and promise golden pantaloons, so that's all I'm saying. Semi-open world? Yes. You explore a big region and then travel to the next huge area. Mark Abaddon then asks, can you say anything about level caps? Nick P then answers, we're planning to cover levels 1 through 10 in full release. Mark Abaddon then furthers, specific reactions are part of class balancing in 5th editions. Are you planning to implement reactions like Counterspell and Uncanny Dodge? If not, what are you planning to do with those? In Divinity, every character was able to take more than one action per turn. How generous do you plan to be with the additional actions compared to P&P? Can you tell us anything about itemization? Will magical items be scarce, or will there be a lot to find? Regarding specific reactions, he says, the features and mechanics that allow a player character to perform an action as a reaction will trigger automatically. The players will be able to control which reactions they want to enable in anticipation of enemy actions. E.g., a wizard would be able to disable their attack of opportunity but enable their shield spell, which will be cast automatically whenever the wizard is targeted by an attack or magic missile spell. In regards to one action per turn, he says, in Baldur's Gate 3, we're going with the same action economy that 5e uses. A character generally takes one action like attacking an enemy or casting a spell during their turn and move up to their movement speed for free. Additionally, if they have a bonus action, they can do that too. Some classes get access to free additional attacks per turn. And regarding the amount of magical items, he says, not like in Original Sin, Baldur's Gate is a different type of game when it comes to loot and item fever. We still want to make treasuring exciting though, and that means a lot of manual work. Treasure has to make sense in the context, and that means hand placing and hand creating it. There will be equipment with magical bonuses, but not many. They'll feel special, and they'll be tailor-made. Tayrom then asks, where is Volo's beard, and is there a quest to retrieve it? Larry and David responds, it froze off. No, seriously though, his custom head wasn't quite ready for the presentation build, but don't worry, he still will look like Volo in the game. Dobby K12 then asks, hey Larry and team, thank you so much for creating Baldur's Gate 3. I can't wait to try it out. In any case, here are my questions. 1. Can we create a custom vampire spawn character? 2. Will warlock patrons have a large narrative weight in the story? And 3. Can half-drow grow beards like other half-elves? In regards to creating a vampire spawn, Larry and David answered no. In terms of the warlock patrons, he says, just like cleric gods and paladin gods, the warlock patron is a variable we know of and can react to. Currently, they introduced dialogue options and voice barks. More is possible, but not planned for the EA Act. And in regards to half-drow growing beards, he says, can you believe that none of us here actually know? We need to ask the mustache people if they had planned it. I Will Put My Finger asks, hi Sven, are there plans to make custom characters feel as unique as the original ones? If so, what can you tell us about them? Larry and Adam then answers, hi, I'm not Sven, I'm Adam, one of the senior writers of Baldur's Gate 3, smiley face. Custom characters are hugely important to us, and when you choose your class, race, and background, you'll have already made choices that have an impact throughout the game, both in terms of what you can do, how you're perceived, and what you know. But just as in tabletop, it's what you do after character creation and how you choose to roleplay that character that will make your adventure and character unique. In many ways, they're more unique because you made them. The world and the characters that populate it, whether companions, NPCs, enemies, or potential allies, will remember and react to your actions and attitude. Custom characters are central to the arc of Baldur's Gate 3, and as your journey unfolds, you'll walk your own path. And when you start story ends, you'll have determined your own fate, and the fate of many others. Racing Hedgehogs then says, I think the concern here is that people felt that playing Divinity Original Sin 2 as non-origin characters was somewhat pointless because they would miss out on quite a few dialogue options and would have substantially less storyline. This was especially true if you were playing co-op, because each person who made a custom decreased how much you could interact with even companion stories. Will there be more storyline for customs than Divinity Original Sin? Perhaps something akin to Dragon Age Origins origin characters. Larry and Adam then says this isn't Divinity. In Baldur's Gate 3, custom characters have a much stronger connection to the world and the main story arc. Whether they're from Baldur's Gate, further afield, or somewhere else entirely. Hey Githyanki, the campaign is much more reactive to your actions. When we say there are serious consequences to your choices, we really mean it. And as you move through your adventure, you'll discover quest lines and stories that relate directly to your character you're roleplaying and the things that you've done before. We're confident that you won't feel shortchanged in terms of narrative breadth and depth if you choose to play a custom character. We love our origins, but this campaign is built for all of you. We then have a myriad of questions from the same user who asks, reactions are a really important part of D&D 5e. A lot of classes have features that revolve around them, and there are a ton of really important spells that are reactions. Shield, counterspell, absorb elements, etc. Are you making changes to the 5e reaction rules? And if so, how are you implementing these crucial features/spells? Sven answers, while it's not going to be in EA immediately, the features and mechanics will allow a character to perform an action as a reaction will trigger automatically. The players will be able to control which reactions they want to enable in anticipation of enemy actions. E.g., a wizard would disable their attack of opportunity but enable their shield spell, which will be cast automatically whenever the wizard is targeted by an attack or magic missile spell. 2. Along those same lines, have you touted emulating the degree of player freedom offered in tabletop D&D, but there are a few core battle mechanics that have not been shown off? Will grappling be a battle mechanic? Can you ready an action such as an attack spell? Will extra attack work the same way as it does in 5e? Can you set spells, especially cantrips, to auto-cast every turn? Will ammunition and spell component mechanics be present? To which Sven says, we don't have grappling, but we will have shoving. Extra attack will work in 5e, though a bit less limiting. You currently can't actively ready an action, but you can select which one of your reactions can trigger during the enemy turn. We're not doing auto-casting. Ammunition is there for things that are special ammo. Spell components are only present on spells that require expensive materials as balancing tools. 3. In the demonstrated gameplay, many non-magical skills, dash, jump, etc., had flashy visual effects attached to their use. Has there been consideration given to making mundane skills appear mundane and reserving fancier effects for spells and truly magical/supernatural abilities? Sven then says, yes, we've actually started with a more mundane version, but it won't work that well and make it harder to read, which is why we had to give it some extra flash. 4. There have been hints of other 5e sources being implemented into the game. Are you going to include material from Mordekainen's Tome of Foes, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and or other player materials outside of the core material of the 5e Player's Handbook? Additionally, at full release, will all content of the PHB be represented, notably subclasses and sub-races? To which he says, HB, MM, and DMG are the base we are starting from, but we are taking material from other books too. 5. What is your plan for magic items? Are you using classic magic items from existing D&D source material and or creating your own? Will we be able to design/craft our own magic items in-game? Sven then says we're planning a mixture of magic items from published D&D materials and some homebrew items of similar complexity and power level. 6. You've mentioned that the scope of Baldur's Gate 3 is huge, but we do not have much to go off. How many places will we be able to visit and explore? Will it be a small part of the Sword Coast, or could we venture off to places like Neverwinter or to the south to see Arm? Is it closer to an open world, or will it be closer to Divinity 1 and 2 in that it is a large map that is sectioned into smaller areas? Sven says the small portion of the adventure we've shown takes place many miles east of Baldur's Gate, and the initial journey will take players along the banks of the river Xianthar and surrounding wilderness and settlements towards Baldur's Gate and the coast. You won't be walking the whole way to Baldur's Gate in real time, so there will be several large open regions. Later, you'll visit the city of Baldur's Gate itself, of course. Other places I'm not going to spoil for you because discovery and exploration are a part of the joy. 7. There have been a back and forth over the inclusion of origin characters in Baldur's Gate 3, namely how origin characters had much more interesting story/plot beats than player-made characters in Divinity 2. Do you have any plans in place to combat this and give player-made characters more agency/story beats in Baldur's Gate 3? Sven then says, this is our campaign, but it's absolutely your adventure. The small amount of gameplay we've shown so far focused on one of our origin characters, but whether you roll a custom or origin character, the choices you make and the actions you take carry the same weight. In Baldur's Gate 3, origin characters are basically fully fledged companions that you can optionally play. Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 had companions with intricate, unique backstories and quests, and our origin system allows us to give you the choice of getting even closer to those stories by role-playing as characters that also act as companions. Even if you're not playing as an origin, you can explore their backstories and personal quests by having them in your party. Just as with a custom character, you're still deciding how those characters behave, how their story unfolds, and how they interact with the world and the party. Custom characters will see the world react to them based on their chosen race, class, and background. Creating a character gives you a sense of who you are, but the heart of the game's reactivity is based on what you do after character creation. A very practical example of how custom characters are tied to the story is the fact that the game identifies and recognizes them as Baldurians. Given the importance of the city in the game, in its own way, Baldur's Gate is very much one of the game's protagonists or antagonists, depending on your perspective and how events unfold. Making it the player's home makes the place and stakes you're fighting for feel very personal. It should be noted though that player characters from the Underdark or other places, Githyanki and Drow for example, have their own unique experiences and backstory in the world, as you'd expect. 8. Will all possible companions be available as origin character options, or will there be companions available only as NPCs? We're trying to make all characters with backstory available as origin characters. Other than that, you'll be able to recruit generic mercenaries and customize these. We're also planning to allow you to build a custom party from the character creation screen, though that most likely won't be present in early access from the get-go. 9. There have been concerns that some aspects of the game, from what has been seen, feel too clean or it feels too much like Divinity's sin, i.e. characters not having a certain air of grit or grime about them despite the circumstances, and does not fit the darker themes that have been part of the Baldur's Gate series. Do you plan on addressing this as you continue to work the overall aesthetics throughout the early game access and into release? Sven says yes, we actually have an entire system in development for grit and grime that adapts to circumstance, but it's not ready yet. When it comes to world and story, we aim for a broad spectrum. It can get very, very dark, but there are also moments of brightness. 10. Writing and storytelling is a major point of contention in discussion surrounding Baldur's Gate 3. While there has been speculation about the plot, the player responses when interacting with other NPCs have been specifically noticed. Many agree that the first-person past tense style of the writing is jarring and breaks immersion. Is this style you wish to continue forward with, or is it still being worked on? Sven says there's several reasons we're doing it this way. Of course, there are story reasons, but it also allows you to get closer to your character, their thoughts, their feelings, and moments of introspection, allowing you to truly understand their motivations. We've experimented with several styles when starting development, but this was the one that at the end of the day stood out, and we're actually quite excited by what we can do with it. It turned out to be an excellent way of allowing players to tell their own story and roleplay their character on a deeper level. I think it's a wonderful tool for role-playing and storytelling, and when you're playing, it's like you're narrating your own adventure. 11. The demo gameplay demonstrated a very strong buff to bonus actions compared to the 5e rules. This seems to break or make other aspects of the game less desirable, especially when concerning the balance of classes. The cunning action from the rogue class becomes largely invalidated when the classes can dash, disengage, or hide with the bonus actions. Is this an issue you're aware of, or has there been something lost in translation, and is this not an issue? Sven says, we'd like to allow the player to combo small common sense bonus actions with full actions. From the mentioned dash and hide still require a full action, while disengage is merged with jump as a bonus action. We are aware of the effect this has on rogues and are looking into ways of keeping them appealing and viable. 12. When you mentioned that loot will be static, is that only for magical items or is that for all items? Following this, will all magical items be known upon finding them, or will a player have to use the identify spell or something similar to discover the magical qualities an item holds? Sven says identify is going to be in and indeed means magical items. 13. There has been concern about the team initiative showcased in the demo, specifically with how this greatly favors whoever goes first and is able to alpha strike their enemy, which worries people that this will cause combat to be too one-sided. Is the plan to continue with group initiative alone, or do you plan on adding individual initiative as an option, at least for single player? Sven then says, one of the big themes of Baldur's Gate 3 is the focus on party over individuals. As we were trying to encourage more cooperation between party members in combat, we had the idea to let them share their turn for total tactical coherence. Additionally, it provides a more comfortable co-op experience. The introduction of the common party turns naturally leads to the changes for the initiative system. We need to compare the initiative of groups of characters instead of individuals. We have considered several ways to do that, some more complex than others, and for early access, we're considering going with taking the highest initiative roll outcome in the party or NPC group. We choose this way because we want to explore the mechanical sub-theme of allowing the entire party to benefit from each member's personal excellence in some area. The same way an eloquent bard can lead their entire party through a tough dialogue check, a swift rogue should be able to give their party the best shot at going first in combat. On top of that, this way of resolving team initiative opens the way for the player to scout out the enemy with the top initiative and neutralize them before entering the combat. However, all of that said, it is something we're working on and experimenting with. If we find out it doesn't work as well as we hope, we'll tinker with it. It's one of those things we'll figure out during early access. 14. How will camp work in multiplayer? Will we still be able to interact with each other? Sven says we'll demo multiplayer at a later stage, but the camp is certainly an important part of Baldur's Gate 3. 15. The original Baldur's Gate games were somewhat of a departure from classic D&D in that they focused on a specific protagonist, while party members were more or less just tagging along. Will the story of Baldur's Gate 3 eventually grant special significance to the player character, or is it purely a tale of a gang of adventurers who have been uniquely affected by the illithid tadpoles? Sven says each avatar will be granted special significance, and that significance will be based on player agency. There are many possible fates waiting for you. 16. It has been previously stated that Larian has been working with Wizards of the Coast to make Baldur's Gate 3 a close approximation of 5e rules. Will any of the new material created by Larian eventually be adopted by Wizard of the Coast in future source books, e.g. races that are playable in Baldur's Gate 3 that are not in official 5e? Did Wizards of the Coast encourage Larian to use materials not yet available to the public? Larian then, very smartly says, that's really a question for Wizards of the Coast. And finally, less specifically about what has been so far, what makes Baldur's Gate for you personally? What are its qualities that resonate with you? Sven then says, I replayed Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 when we started on this, and the same things stood out back then as they stand out today. The sense of being on an epic quest with a party of interesting companions, which I need to keep happy, the promise that there's something to be discovered everywhere I go, the sense that I'm someone special in this world and make a difference, and a lot of, oh, that's cool. I think I appreciated it even more now than I did back in the days. Whew, well, that was a lot of questions. I apologize if I missed any or mispronounced names. I'm sure I did. It was a very big tongue twisters in there, but I really appreciated what Larian Studios did for the AMA. It cleared up so many questions that the player base had. Let me know if there's anything I missed in the comments below, and I'll make sure to pin it and respond. Also, if you want to play Baldur's Gate 3 with a great community, we've started a new Discord, which is linked in the description, as well as my socials, as I love to chat in the intro. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Traveler.